In a quiet town surrounded by green forests and tall mountains, there lived a man named Aaron. Aaron was known by the villagers as a talented outdoor man. He had strong hands, a keen mind, and a heart that loved nature. Every morning, he would walk through the forest listening to birds sing and watching the sun rise behind the hills. People often said that Aaron could fix anything, build anything, and make the old look new again. One day, while Aaron was walking along a narrow path near the edge of the forest, he noticed something unusual. Hidden behind thick bushes and old trees was an old cabin. The cabin looked like it had been abandoned for many years. Its wooden walls were cracked, the roof was missing several tiles, and the windows were covered with dust and spider webs. Yet there was something about the cabin that caught Aaron's attention. Despite its worn-out look, it seemed alive in its own way. The trees around it leaned protectively toward the building, and the sunlight fell gently on its walls as if it wanted to shine on the place. Aaron felt a strange connection with the cabin. He remembered the stories his grandfather had told him about old cabins in the mountains. They were places where families once lived, where laughter and love filled the air. Aaron could almost hear the echoes of those happy moments. He decided he wanted to restore the cabin, to bring it back to life, and maybe, in some small way, honor the people who had once lived there. The next morning, Aaron returned to the cabin with his tools. He carried hammers, nails, a saw, and cans of paint. He had a plan. He would start slowly, cleaning the cabin and making it safe before he rebuilt the broken parts. As he stepped inside, he saw old furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. The floorboards creaked under his weight, and the smell of damp wood filled the air. Aaron did not feel scared. Instead, he felt inspired. He began by clearing the surrounding area. He removed fallen branches, pulled out weeds, and swept the front porch. He discovered that the garden around the cabin had once been well kept. There were traces of flower beds and paths made of stones. Aaron decided he would bring the garden back to life too. Every day he would dig the soil, plant new flowers, and water them carefully. Slowly, the garden began to bloom and butterflies came to visit. Villagers walking by often stopped to watch him work. They were amazed at how much care Aaron gave to the cabin and the garden. Inside the cabin, Aaron worked with patience. He replaced broken windows, fixed the roof, and repaired the doors. Sometimes he had to replace entire walls where the wood had rotted. Even when the work was hard, Aaron never complained. He hummed small tunes to himself and sometimes spoke to the cabin as if it were a friend. "Don't worry," he would say. "I will make you shine again." As days turned into weeks, the cabin started to look better. The walls were painted a warm brown color, the windows sparkled in the sunlight, and the roof was strong and steady. Aaron had also built a small fireplace inside, where the villagers could sit during cold evenings. He found an old wooden table and polished it until it shone. He added a few chairs and placed a rug on the floor. Slowly, the cabin transformed from an old forgotten place into a welcoming home. One evening, as Aaron was sitting on the porch watching the sunset, he saw a little girl walking along the path. She had bright eyes and a shy smile. Her name was Mira, and she lived in the village nearby. She had heard the villagers talking about Aaron and the old cabin. She was curious and wanted to see it herself. When she saw the cabin, she gasped in surprise. "It looks like a fairy tale," she said softly. Aaron smiled and invited her to come inside. Mira was amazed by the changes. She touched the polished table, admired the flowers in the garden, and peeked at the fireplace. "You have done all this by yourself?" she asked. Aaron nodded. "I love bringing old things back to life. It feels like giving them a second chance." Mira's eyes sparkled. She loved stories about helping and caring. She promised Aaron that she would help him sometimes in the garden. Aaron was happy. He knew that small acts of kindness could create big happiness. Word about Aaron's work spread across the village. People were curious to see the cabin. Some brought old chairs and blankets to add to the place. Others shared stories about the family that had once lived there. Aaron listened carefully to all the stories. Each story added life to the cabin, and each memory made him work even harder. He wanted the cabin to not only look beautiful but also feel warm and full of life. Aaron's dedication was not easy. Sometimes the rain poured heavily, and he had to pause his work. Other times he felt tired and sore. But he never gave up. He believed that every bit of effort would bring joy to someone, even if it was just him or a visitor. At night, he would sit by the small fireplace and imagine the laughter of the past families. He told himself that the cabin would become a place where new stories could begin. One day, while repairing the roof, Aaron found a small wooden box hidden in a corner. He opened it carefully and discovered old photographs and letters. The photos showed a happy family, a father, a mother, and 2 children. The letters were full of love, dreams, and daily life. Aaron read the letters slowly, feeling the emotions of the family. He realized that they had once loved this cabin deeply. Aaron promised himself that he would honor their memory and keep the spirit of the cabin alive. As weeks passed, the cabin became more than just a building. It became a symbol of hope, care, and love. Villagers started visiting regularly. Some brought food, others helped with small repairs, and children came to play in the garden. Aaron felt a deep happiness. He realized that renovating the cabin was not just about fixing wood and walls. It was about bringing people together, sharing memories, and creating joy. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in gold and pink, Aaron sat on the porch with Mira and some village children. They watched the birds return to their nests, and the flowers swayed gently in the wind. Mira held a small flower in her hand and said, "This place feels happy. It feels alive." Aaron smiled and nodded. "That is what I wanted. A place where happiness can grow just like these flowers." Aaron looked at the cabin now shining under the evening sky. He felt a sense of pride, not because of the work he had done, but because of the life he had restored. The cabin was no longer forgotten. It had a new story, and it would create more stories in the years to come. Aaron knew that sometimes small acts of love and care could touch hearts in ways nothing else could. And so, the old cabin hidden in the forest became a place where people smiled, shared stories, and felt peace. Aaron's talent, patience, and heart had turned an abandoned place into a home filled with warmth and life. He realized that helping old things find new purpose was one of the most beautiful experiences in the world. Aaron woke early the next morning feeling excited. The cabin had begun to attract attention, but he wanted it to be even more welcoming. He packed his tools carefully, tying them into his old leather bag, and set off toward the cabin. The forest was alive with morning sounds. Birds chirped cheerfully and the sun filtered through the trees in golden beams. Aaron always felt that the forest encouraged him, giving him energy and peace. When he arrived at the cabin, he noticed that the garden had grown since yesterday. The flowers he had planted had begun to bloom, their colors bright against the green grass. Mira and a few other children from the village were already there. They had brought tiny watering cans and were carefully giving each flower a drink. Aaron smiled. He loved seeing the children enjoy nature. "You are doing a wonderful job," he said. "The flowers will be happy because of your care." The children giggled and waved their hands. "We love helping," said Mira. "Can we help paint the fence today?" Aaron nodded. The old fence surrounding the cabin had gaps and its paint had faded long ago. Aaron gave them brushes and together they painted the fence a bright, cheerful yellow. Some paint splashed on the children's hands and faces and they laughed happily. Aaron laughed too. It felt good to see the cabin surrounded by life and joy. After finishing the fence, Aaron turned his attention to the cabin's interior. He wanted to make it more comfortable for visitors. He repaired the wooden shelves, polished the floor, and added small rugs near the windows. He also placed a few cushions on the chairs, making them soft and welcoming. Aaron found an old mirror in the attic. He cleaned it carefully and hung it on the wall. The mirror reflected sunlight into the room, making the cabin feel warm and bright. While Aaron worked, a few villagers arrived. One carried a basket of fresh fruits, another brought jars of honey from his farm. They all wanted to contribute to the cabin's new life. Aaron thanked them warmly. He realized that people felt happy when they could give something, no matter how small. "This cabin is not just mine," he told them. "It belongs to everyone who wants to bring happiness here." The most exciting moment of the day came when Aaron discovered a small, hidden space behind the fireplace. The bricks were loose and he carefully moved them aside. Behind the wall was a tiny storage area. Inside, he found old books, notebooks, and a few more photographs. The books were fragile, with pages yellowed from time. Aaron opened one gently and saw drawings of mountains, animals, and forests. The notebooks had poems and letters written in neat handwriting. Aaron's heart warmed. This was the legacy of the family who had once lived here. He decided to place the books on a small shelf in the cabin. "Now visitors can see the stories of the people who loved this place before us," he said. Mira and the children were curious. They read the poems aloud and admired the drawings. Aaron explained that the cabin had always been a place for creativity and love. The children listened carefully, feeling connected to the past. As the afternoon sun rose high in the sky, Aaron realized it was time to focus on the outdoor area. He wanted the space to be comfortable for families and children. He built a small wooden bench near a large oak tree, perfect for resting or reading. He also placed a swing on a strong branch. Mira was the first to try it. She swung back and forth, her laughter echoing in the forest. Other children joined her. Aaron watched them, feeling proud. The cabin was no longer a quiet, abandoned place. It had become a space of joy and togetherness. That evening, as the sun began to set, Aaron prepared a small bonfire outside the cabin. He placed stones in a circle and carefully arranged the wood. Soon the fire crackled to life, sending golden light into the surrounding trees. Villagers gathered near the cabin, some sitting on benches, others on blankets. Mira handed out warm bread and honey that the villagers had brought. Aaron felt a deep happiness. This cabin had become more than a building. It had become a home for everyone who wanted to share stories, laughter, and warmth. As the night deepened, Aaron noticed a young couple from the village standing quietly near the cabin. They had heard about Aaron's work and were curious to see the result. The woman smiled and said, "This place is beautiful. You have done something wonderful." The man nodded. "It feels like magic. It is amazing what love and care can do." Aaron thanked them. He realized that sometimes the simplest acts, like painting a fence or planting flowers, could touch hearts in ways nothing else could. Later, Aaron sat alone near the bonfire, reflecting on the cabin's journey. He remembered the first day he had discovered it, broken and forgotten.
Now it was alive with laughter, flowers, and memories.
He felt a sense of accomplishment, but more than that, he felt hope. Hope that even forgotten things like old cabins or lost memories could be revived with patience, care, and love. The following morning, Aaron decided it was time to make one more improvement. He wanted the cabin to be a place where people could learn and enjoy nature. He built a small wooden board in the garden and wrote nature and stories on it. He placed some benches around the area and added small boxes of seeds and soil. People, especially children, can plant flowers and learn about the forest, Aaron explained to Mira and the others. The children's eyes sparkled with excitement. They loved the idea of contributing to the garden and the cabin's life. As the days passed, more people came to visit. Some elderly villagers shared their memories of the forest, teaching children about different plants and birds. Others told stories of their childhood, and Aaron would carefully write them down in a notebook he kept for the cabin. Each story, each memory made the cabin more special. Aaron noticed that people who visited left happier than they came. The cabin was healing hearts, including his own. One day, Aaron had an idea to create a small event for the village. He wanted to show them the full potential of the cabin and the garden. He announced a story and flower day where villagers could come to share stories, plant flowers, and enjoy the forest. The village was excited. People prepared songs, poems, and small performances. Children decorated the garden with colorful drawings and ribbons. Aaron worked tirelessly to make sure the cabin and garden looked their best. When the day arrived, the cabin was full of life. Families gathered around the garden, sharing laughter and stories. The children ran freely, planting flowers and chasing butterflies. Aaron watched silently, feeling tears of joy in his eyes. This cabin, which had been abandoned and forgotten, had become the heart of the village. People who had once lived busy lives were now connecting, sharing, and caring for each other. Aaron realized that his work had done more than he ever imagined. As evening came, villagers lit small lanterns and placed them around the garden. The cabin glowed in the soft light, reflecting the happiness of everyone present. Aaron stood near the porch watching the scene. He remembered the first time he had stepped inside, seeing the dust and broken furniture. Now the cabin was alive, full of memories and laughter. Aaron smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. The cabin would continue to grow, creating stories and happiness for many more years. Before leaving for the night, Aaron sat on the bench under the oak tree. Mira joined him, holding a small bouquet of freshly picked flowers. She smiled at him and said, "Thank you for everything. You made this place magical." Aaron gently patted her shoulder. The magic was always here. We just needed to bring it back to life. The stars appeared in the night sky, shining brightly over the cabin and the forest. Aaron felt at peace. The old cabin had taught him that love, care, and patience could transform even the most forgotten places, and he knew, deep in his heart, that the cabin would continue to touch hearts, create smiles, and inspire hope for a long time. Weeks passed, and the cabin had become a familiar sight for everyone in the village. Aaron continued his work every day, but now he noticed something special. People did not just come to see the cabin, they came to feel it. Families gathered in the garden, children played in the sunlight, and the elderly found comfort on the benches Aaron had built. The cabin had become more than a place. It had become a heart for the community. One morning as Aaron walked through the forest toward the cabin, he noticed smoke rising from a small patch near the trees. Concerned, he ran quickly to the spot. To his surprise, he found a small fire had started among the dry leaves. Aaron did not panic. He quickly used his water can and some dirt from the ground to put out the fire. He looked around to make sure no other part of the forest was burning. Once the danger had passed, Aaron felt relief. He realized how fragile nature could be, and he made a mental note to create a safe space around the cabin to prevent accidents. Back at the cabin, Aaron began planning ways to protect the garden and forest nearby. He built small stone paths to separate flowers from dry leaves, trimmed trees near the cabin, and collected extra water for emergencies. Mira and the other children helped eagerly. They felt proud to take care of the cabin and the surrounding forest. Aaron smiled. He knew that teaching them to respect nature was as important as building the cabin itself. One afternoon, Aaron discovered an old, broken bench hidden behind the bushes. The wood was worn and the nails were rusted. Most people would have thrown it away, but Aaron saw potential. He carefully carried it to the workshop area he had made near the cabin and began restoring it. As he worked, he remembered the family who had lived in the cabin long ago. He imagined them sitting on a bench like this, enjoying warm summer evenings. Aaron wanted to create that feeling again. While Aaron worked on the bench, a small fox appeared near the garden. Aaron had seen animals in the forest before, but this fox seemed curious about him. It approached slowly, watching him carefully. Aaron remained calm, speaking softly. "Hello, little friend. Are you enjoying the garden?" The fox tilted its head as if understanding him, then sat quietly near the flowers. Aaron continued his work while the fox stayed close. Over the next few days, the fox returned often, and Aaron named it Chiku. Chiku became a small companion in Aaron's daily work, adding joy and laughter to the quiet mornings. One morning, while Aaron was cleaning the cabin's windows, Mira ran in excitedly. "Aaron, look! A letter came for the cabin." Aaron took the letter carefully. It was from a woman named Annika, who lived in a nearby town. She had heard about Aaron's renovation work and wanted to visit. She wrote that she had childhood memories of this very cabin. Her family had once lived nearby, and she wanted to see the cabin that Aaron had restored. Aaron felt a warm feeling in his heart. The cabin was not only bringing happiness to the village, but also reconnecting people with their past. A few days later, Annika arrived. She was a kind woman with gentle eyes and a bright smile. When she saw the cabin, she paused, covering her mouth in surprise. Tears filled her eyes. "I cannot believe this," she whispered. "This is exactly how I remembered it, but even more beautiful." Aaron invited her inside, showing her the polished floors, the fireplace, and the books he had discovered. Annika ran her fingers over the old photographs and letters. Each item held memories she thought were lost forever. She thanked Aaron with a voice full of emotion. Aaron smiled quietly. He realized that the cabin was touching hearts in ways he had never imagined. Annika shared stories from her childhood. She talked about summer evenings spent near the garden, climbing trees and reading books by the fireplace. Aaron listened carefully, imagining the scenes she described. He noticed that the cabin had always been a place of love and learning, and he felt honored to continue its story. Mira and the children sat around listening eagerly. They were fascinated by the idea that the cabin had a history before Aaron had found it. It made their own connection to the cabin even stronger. As the days grew longer, Aaron decided to make one final improvement before winter arrived. He wanted to build a small library inside the cabin. He gathered old wooden shelves, polished them, and carefully placed books he had found along with new ones donated by the villagers. Aaron labeled the shelves with simple categories: stories, nature, poems, and history. He wanted children and adults to enjoy reading while spending time in the cabin. Mira helped him arrange the books, placing each one carefully on the shelves. When the library was complete, Arun stepped back and smiled. The cabin had truly become a place for learning, play, and joy. One chilly evening, as Arun sat near the fireplace, he noticed Annika looking quietly at the photos on the wall. "Arun," she said softly, "do you know what makes this place special? It is not just the renovation or the garden. It is the care you have put into every corner. You did not just fix the cabin. You gave it a soul." Aaron felt a lump in his throat. He had never thought of it this way, but he realized she was right. His work had become more than construction. It had become love in action. The very next week, a small challenge appeared. Heavy rain had fallen overnight and part of the garden had been flooded. Flowers were washed away, and some of the small paths had been damaged. Aaron felt worried, but he did not give up. He worked tirelessly to repair the garden, planting new flowers and reinforcing the paths with stronger stones. Mira and the other children helped enthusiastically. Aaron knew that challenges were part of life, and he wanted to show them that with patience and teamwork, problems could be solved. During the repair work, Aaron discovered a small, injured bird near the flooded garden. Its wing was bent and it could not fly. Arun gently picked it up and made a soft bed for it near the cabin. He fed it with small seeds and carefully tended to its wing. Mira named the bird Mithu and promised to help Arun care for it. Days passed and the bird slowly grew stronger. Aaron and the children watched with joy as Mithu finally flew again, circling the cabin before disappearing into the forest. Arun felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Even the smallest lives were safe and cared for in the cabin's space. The flood and the rescued bird brought another surprise. The villagers, seeing Aaron's dedication, started helping more than ever. They came with shovels, seeds, and ideas to make the cabin and garden even better. Aaron realized that when people saw genuine care, they wanted to be part of it. The cabin had become a symbol of unity, kindness, and hope. Everyone worked together, planting more flowers, fixing paths, and cleaning spaces for animals. The forest around the cabin seemed brighter and livelier than before. One sunny afternoon, Arun organized a small celebration in the cabin garden. He invited all the villagers, including Annika, Mira, and the children. They decorated the garden with flowers, ribbons, and handmade lanterns. Aaron had prepared a small corner for storytelling. Villagers shared their experiences, songs, and poems. Children performed small skits about animals, forests, and old stories from the cabin's past. Aaron listened, feeling his heart swell with joy. The cabin had become a living memory, where past and present met, creating happiness for everyone. As evening came, Aaron stood quietly near the porch, watching the lanterns glow in the soft light. Mira came and held his hand. "Aaron, this cabin is more than beautiful. It is magical. Everyone is happy here because of you." Aaron smiled warmly. "The magic was always here, Mira. We just needed to bring it out and share it." The wind rustled gently through the trees as if agreeing with him. Aaron felt proud, not of the work he had done alone, but of the love and community that the cabin had inspired. Before the night ended, Aaron took a moment to look around the garden. Flowers swayed gently, lanterns shone softly, and the cabin stood strong, welcoming everyone who visited. He realized that the journey had been more than renovation. It had been a journey of hearts connecting people, animals, and nature. Aaron knew that challenges would come, but he also knew that with care, patience, and love, the cabin would always remain a place of happiness. The next morning, Aaron woke to a soft mist hovering over the forest. The cabin looked peaceful in the early light. Arun took a deep breath of the fresh air and felt grateful for the journey so far. The cabin had become more than just a home. It was a symbol of hope, care, and community. He had worked hard to bring it back to life, but the happiness it now gave was more than he had ever imagined. Aaron started the day by checking the garden. Mira and a few children were already there, watering the flowers. Aaron smiled at their enthusiasm. "Good morning, everyone. Let's make sure our garden is ready for a new day," he said. The children giggled and worked carefully. Aaron noticed that some flowers planted during the flood had grown strong and beautiful. The garden seemed to be thriving, reflecting the care and love put into it. After tending to the garden, Arun decided to focus on the cabin interior. He wanted to create a small corner where visitors could relax and reflect. He gathered a few cushions, a small table, and a few of the old books he had discovered. Aaron placed them near a window that faced the rising sun. The corner looked cozy, inviting, and peaceful. He imagined people sitting there, reading stories or simply enjoying the morning sunlight. Later that morning, a visitor arrived unexpectedly. It was an elderly man named Hari, who had once lived near the forest as a child. Harry had heard about Aaron's work and wanted to see the cabin for himself. When he stepped inside, his eyes widened. He looked at the polished floors, the fireplace, and the neatly arranged bookshelves. A smile spread across his face. "This is remarkable," he said softly. "I remember this place as a child. You have brought it back with so much love." Aaron thanked him humbly, feeling proud that the cabin was touching hearts beyond the village. Hari shared stories of the past. He spoke of his family spending summers in the cabin, of laughter and songs around the fireplace, and of nights spent gazing at the stars. Aaron listened intently, imagining the cabin filled with life decades ago. Mira and the children sat nearby, wide-eyed and fascinated by the history. Aaron realized that the cabin was not just a building. It was a bridge between past and present, connecting generations through memories and care. In the afternoon, Arun decided to take the children on a small adventure in the forest. He wanted them to learn about nature and experience the beauty of the woods firsthand. They walked along a narrow path, observing birds, flowers, and small animals. Aaron taught them how to identify trees, listen to the sounds of the forest, and respect every living creature. Mira carried a small notebook, drawing pictures of flowers and birds she saw. Aaron felt joy seeing the children learn and connect with nature. When they returned to the cabin, Arun noticed something unusual near the garden. A small family of rabbits had appeared, hopping quietly among the flowers. The children watched with delight as the rabbits explored the garden. Arun explained that animals often sensed places of peace and safety. "Our cabin has become a safe home for them too," he said. Mira smiled. "This cabin is magical, not just for people but for animals too." Aaron nodded. He realized that the love put into the cabin had created life in more ways than one. As the evening approached, Aaron began preparing a small dinner for the visitors who often came to the cabin. He set up a few tables outside near the garden so people could eat while enjoying the fresh air. Villagers arrived, bringing food and helping arrange everything. Mira and the children decorated the area with flowers, making the space warm and inviting. Aaron felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The cabin was now a place of gathering, learning, and sharing. During dinner, a little girl named Anya approached Aaron. She was shy but curious. "Aaron, can you tell us more about the family who lived here before?" she asked softly. Aaron smiled and nodded. He shared stories from the letters and photographs he had found, telling about the parents and children who once filled the cabin with love. Anya listened carefully, eyes wide with wonder. Other children joined, and soon a small group gathered around Aaron, listening to the stories. The cabin was alive with curiosity, learning, and warmth. After dinner, Aaron lit a small bonfire outside. The fire crackled gently, sending warm light over the garden. The villagers, children, and visitors gathered around. Aaron shared a story about the importance of caring for old places and nature. He spoke about patience, love, and the joy that comes from helping others. Mira and the children listened, occasionally adding their own thoughts. The night was peaceful, full of laughter, stories, and a sense of belonging. Suddenly, Aaron noticed a soft whimpering sound near the edge of the garden. He went closer and found a small injured dog. Its leg was hurt and it looked scared. Aaron gently picked it up, speaking softly to calm it. Mira and the children gathered around. "We have to help it," she said. Aaron nodded. They carried the dog inside the cabin, giving it water and a small blanket. Aaron examined the leg and realized it was a minor injury. He carefully wrapped it and the dog gradually relaxed. The children named it Cheru, and Arun promised they would care for it until it was strong enough to roam freely. The next few days were filled with care for Cheru. The children took turns feeding him and playing gently with him in the garden. Aaron also continued his work on the cabin and garden. The presence of Cheru added joy and excitement to the place. Visitors often stopped to watch the children play with the dog, and many offered to bring treats or blankets. Aaron realized that the cabin had become a place where love extended not only to people, but also to animals. One morning, Aaron received a letter in the mail. It was from Annika, the woman who had visited earlier. She wrote that she wanted to bring a group of children from the town to visit the cabin and learn about nature. Aaron felt excited. He saw this as an opportunity to share the lessons of love, care, and patience with even more people. He began preparing, making sure the cabin and garden were ready for the visitors. The children helped eagerly, planting flowers and tidying the spaces. When the group of children arrived, they were amazed by the cabin and garden. Aaron guided them through the forest, teaching them about the plants, birds, and animals. Mira and the other children assisted, showing the visitors the garden and library. The little ones listened carefully, touched the flowers, and admired the books. Aaron saw happiness in their eyes. He knew that the cabin was no longer just a project. It was a place that inspired learning, care, and joy in everyone who visited. As the sun began to set, Aaron gathered everyone near the bonfire. He shared stories about the cabin's history, the family who once lived there, and the journey of restoring it. He spoke about the animals that had found a safe home, the flowers that had bloomed, and the villagers who had joined him in caring for the place. The children listened wide-eyed while the adults smiled quietly, touched by Aaron's words. The cabin glowed in the warm light, reflecting the love and care put into it. Before leaving, Aaron noticed Sheru sitting quietly near the porch, watching the children with gentle eyes. Aaron patted the dog's head. "You see, Sheru? This cabin is full of happiness now because of everyone's care," he said. Sheru wagged his tail softly as if understanding. Aaron realized that the cabin had become a living story, where every action of love, patience, and care added another chapter. That night, Aaron sat quietly on the porch, looking at the stars above. He thought about the journey from the day he first discovered the abandoned cabin to now, when it was full of life, stories, and laughter. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The cabin had taught him that small acts of love and care could change lives, create happiness, and inspire hope. Aaron knew that no matter what challenges came, the spirit of the cabin would continue to grow and touch hearts. The morning sun rose gently over the forest, casting golden light on the cabin and its garden. Aaron woke early as usual, feeling a sense of excitement and peace. Today was special. Annika had returned with a larger group of children from her town. She wanted them to experience the cabin, the forest, and the joy that Aaron had created. Aaron packed his tools and materials carefully, though he knew he might not need them much today. The cabin had reached a stage where it was more than just repaired. It was alive with love and care. When the children arrived, their eyes widened in amazement. The garden was full of colorful flowers. Butterflies danced in the sunlight, and the cabin glowed warmly. Aaron welcomed them with a smile. Mira and the other village children joined him, ready to guide the visitors through the garden and cabin. Aaron explained that every flower, every path, and every corner of the cabin had been restored with love and care. The children listened closely, their faces full of wonder. The first activity Aaron arranged was exploring the forest nearby. He walked with the children along a safe path, pointing out trees, plants, and birds. He taught them how to listen to nature and respect all living things. "Every tree, every bird, and every flower has a story," Aaron said. "If we pay attention, we can learn from them and care for them." The children nodded eagerly, and many of them made small sketches in their notebooks. Aaron felt a quiet happiness. He realized that the cabin had become a place where children could learn about life, love, and nature all at once. After the forest walk, Aaron returned to the garden with the children. He showed them how to plant seeds and care for flowers. Mira helped explain to the new children how much attention each plant needed. Slowly, the garden began to fill with new life. Flowers of every color bloomed in small patches, and the children laughed as they watered them carefully. Even the animals nearby, like Chiku the fox and Sheru the dog, seemed to enjoy the cheerful activity. The garden had become a living classroom, teaching lessons of patience, responsibility, and love. As midday approached, Aaron invited everyone inside the cabin. He had prepared the library corner, and the children gathered around the shelves of books. Aaron read stories from the old notebooks he had found, stories of families, adventures, and kindness. The children listened in silence, some leaning on the cushions, others sitting cross-legged on the floor. Their eyes shone with curiosity and excitement. Aaron smiled, seeing how the cabin now shared history, knowledge, and love with a new generation. During the afternoon, A small surprise awaited. Annika had brought some old letters and photographs she had found from her family archives. She handed them to Aaron and the children. The letters told stories of the family that had lived in the cabin long ago, of summer adventures and evenings spent by the fireplace. The children were fascinated. Aaron carefully placed these letters and photos on a special shelf in the library corner. He explained that preserving memories was as important as caring for the cabin itself. The children listened with awe, understanding the deep connection between past and present. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Aaron arranged a small gathering outside near the garden. The villagers, Annika, and the children formed a circle. Aaron spoke gently. "This cabin is more than wood and stone. It is a place where we can care for nature, learn from the past, and share happiness. Today, you are all part of this story." The children held hands, feeling connected to each other, the cabin, and the forest. Aaron noticed tears of joy in some villagers' eyes. He understood that the cabin had grown into a symbol of hope, love, and community. The most heartwarming moment of the day came when Aaron noticed Mira holding a small box. She had gathered flowers from the garden and small painted stones. She placed them carefully in the center of the circle. Each child added something, a drawing, a poem, a flower. Aaron felt his heart fill with emotion. He realized that the cabin had become a place where memories were created, where love was shared, and where even the smallest actions could touch hearts. As evening approached, Aaron prepared a small bonfire in the center of the garden. The warm light reflected in everyone's eyes, and the soft glow made the cabin appear even more magical. Aaron told stories of the cabin's past, the family who had once lived there, and the journey of restoring it. He spoke about the importance of care, patience, and love in every action. The children listened, some holding small animals, others leaning against Aaron or Mira. The air was filled with laughter, gentle whispers, and the soft crackle of the fire. Suddenly, Chiku the fox appeared near the fire. The children squealed with delight, and Aaron smiled. Chiku sat quietly watching the flames. Not long after, Shrew the dog wagged his tail happily, circling the fire before resting near Arun. The animals, the children, the villagers, and Aaron formed a peaceful circle. Connected by the warmth of the cabin, the garden, and the shared experiences of the day, Aaron felt a sense of fulfillment deeper than he had ever felt before. As night fell, Aaron looked around at the glowing cabin and the happy faces surrounding him. He remembered the day he had discovered the old broken cabin, hidden behind trees and weeds. It had been abandoned, quiet, and forgotten. Now it was alive with life, learning, and love. Aaron realized that the cabin had done something extraordinary. It had brought people together, connected generations, and inspired hearts. Mira approached Aaron, holding a small notebook. Inside, she had written a story about the cabin, the forest, and the animals. She read it aloud softly. The children listened, captivated by her words. Aaron felt tears of joy in his eyes. He understood that the cabin had become a place where creativity, love, and memories could flourish. Every small act of care, every flower planted, every animal nurtured had created a heart-melting effect on everyone who visited. Aaron decided to end the evening with a small tradition. He handed a candle to each child and villager. Together, they lit the candles and placed them along the garden paths. The soft light shimmered against the flowers and the cabin walls. Aaron spoke gently. "Let this light remind us that love, care, and kindness can brighten even the darkest places. This cabin is alive because of all of you." The children smiled, holding their candles proudly. The glow reflected in their eyes, shining like the warmth in their hearts. Before the visitors left, Aaron gave them a small wooden token, carved with the shape of a tree. "This is for you," he said. "A reminder that the cabin, the garden, and the forest belong to all of us. Take care of nature, share love, and keep creating happiness wherever you go." The visitors thanked him, some with tears in their eyes. Aaron felt a deep satisfaction. The cabin had become more than he had ever imagined. It was not only restored, it had become a living story of hope, care, and heart-melting happiness. That night, Aaron sat quietly on the porch watching the stars above. The cabin glowed softly in the moonlight, surrounded by the peaceful forest. Chiku curled up beside him and Sheru rested near the fire pit. Aaron reflected on the journey. The abandoned cabin, the hard work, the floods, the animals, the children, and the villagers. Every challenge had been worth it. Every effort had created love and connection. Arun felt a calm joy, knowing that the cabin would continue to touch hearts, inspire hope, and bring happiness for years to come. Finally, Arun whispered to himself, "This is why we care. This is why we give our hearts, to bring life, love, and joy into the world." The cabin, standing proudly in the forest, seemed to respond with a gentle rustle of the trees. Arun smiled, feeling complete. The journey of restoring the old cabin had not only transformed a building, but also the lives of everyone who came near it. It was a heart-melting story, one that would live on forever. And so the old cabin in the forest, once abandoned and forgotten, became a place of life, love, and joy. Children laughed, animals played, villagers shared stories, and visitors discovered hope. Arun's hard work, patience, and care had created something extraordinary. It was a home for hearts, a garden of memories, and a symbol of how one person's love could change the world around them.